over 10 million cells, Google Sheets may start to slow down or even break. And if you ever worked with large spreadsheets, you know this is not just a warning. This is the point where the system starts behaving unpredictably. Everything becomes slower, formulas take longer to calculate, and even small changes start to feel heavy. And usually at this stage, people come to the same conclusion. Okay, Google Sheets is not suitable for large systems, so we need a database. Because Google Sheet has a limit around 10 million cells, and at first that sounds like a lot, but once you start building real products, this limitation becomes noticeable very quickly, and almost every developer reaches the same conclusion at this point. This doesn't scale. But the real question is something else. What if the problem is not scalability itself? What if the problem is how we structure and think about data? Today we're going to look at Google Sheets from a different perspective. I'm going to show you instead of fighting limitation, we can actually change the way those limitations exist in the first place. And we'll start with something simple. We'll go through a few approaches that allow us to work with large amounts of data. But among them, there will be one that doesn't just improve the system. It completely changes the way you design it. We have one big archive where the entire system leaves payments, order, invoices, others. And all of this exists inside a single Google Sheet. If your project is small and the amount of data is slow, this is completely fine. It's work, it's fast, and it's even convenient. But now let's imagine a different situation. One tab has 10,000 rows, another has 50, another one has 20, and so on. This is where the problem starts. Google Sheet gradually begins to slow down, calculate formulas longer, respond with delays, and overall becomes less stable. And the first thing that usually comes to mind is decomposition. In other words, we take our large archive and split it into smaller parts. For example, a separate table for payments, a separate one for clients. And in this way, we get a much cleaner structure. But then a new problem appears. Earlier, everything was in one place and that was simple. Now the data is spread across multiple tables. And a new question arises. How we do combine all of this and build analytics on top of it? And here we can use a different tool. Data Studio. Its main idea is to work not with a single table, but with multiple data sources. And for this, there is very important feature – blended data. After that, we build dashboards, analytics, calculation, and metrics. So all the analytics logic moves out of spreadsheets into a tool that is specifically designed for this. And this is already the first step towards scaling the system. But it is not the final one, because even the approach still has its limitation. When Google Sheets start to slow down, the next logical step is no longer optimization inside spreadsheet. It is a full transition to a database. We take all our data and move it into PostgreSQL or other database. How the structure changes? Instead of table in Google Sheets, we get a proper relationship model. Each entity becomes a separate table. Each record has an ID. Relationships are built using foreign keys. For example, a client has an ID, an order stores a client ID, a payment has an order ID. To keep system alive, we can also add data update triggers, automatic synchronization, webhooks from AppScript or a backend. So whenever something changes in the system, the database immediately captures it and updates related data. Advantages of this approach: full scalability, fast performance with large datasets, proper relational structure between tables, data integrity control. But there is also an obvious complexity. You need infrastructure setup. You now have a backend, server maintenance is required. The system becomes more complex, and at this point you completely move away from Google Sheet as a core foundation. And that is why the real question appears. Can we still stay in Google Sheets, but work with it like a real data system? And an important point, this approach is not always the most convenient one, but in some types of project I actually use it. When it works the best. For example, we have a simple workflow, clients, reminders for clients. And here we face a classic problem. Where do we store all the reminders? Classic approach. Usually we create a separate table, clients and reminders. And then we connect them using IDs. This is completely fine, but over time you start getting many relationships and you need to build join logic and the system becomes more complex. Alternative approach, JSON inside a cell. Instead of that, I keep it simpler. In the client table, I add a field called reminders, and I store an array in JSON format, which can be continuously updated. When I need to retrieve the data, I scan the table using code, I select the required client, I parse the JSON from the cell, and I get an array of reminders. Then I simply open the client, read the JSON, and display the reminder inside a model window. So instead of building separate tables, maintaining relationships, synchronizing data, we simply store all related data in one object. But again, an important moment. This is not a universal solution, but in small and medium CRM systems, it gives us speed, flexibility, and very simple architecture. In fact, there is one important thing to understand here. There is no perfect system or perfect solution, but there are approaches that can make working with data much more easier than it is right now. You need just to choose the approach that fits your specific case and gives you speed and flexibility here and right now. Because in a real project, the most valuable thing is not a perfect system. The most valuable thing is how fast and simple you can work with data. And in the next video, we'll go even further. We'll start building a full CRM system based on Google Sheets. I show how all of this can be combined into a real working product. But the important point is, we will no longer treat Google Sheets as a spreadsheet. We will turn it into a web-based system that you can use like a real application in a browser. So if you are interested how to turn simple spreadsheet into a real product, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video.